Some things in life require you to have a made-up mind. You have to settle in your mind and your heart who you are and what your true purpose is in life, and then stick with it no matter what. God bless you. I'm Elect Lady Prophetess Owens. Come on, let's talk a little bit about life. You should not allow circumstances, people, whether it's your family or friends, wealth, lack, fame, intellect, etc., to deter you from God-given purpose, even when it's difficult or unpleasant. In the story of Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, we find that these 4 Hebrew boys had a determined, made-up mind, not to allow culture to dictate who they would become. Sometimes we lean on culture too much as an excuse for our behavior and lifestyle as to why we have become what we are. But these 4 Hebrew boys took a total different perspective regardless of the culture, because they had a made-up mind. They refused to let culture dictate or redefine them, but they maintained a status of steadfastness that overruled the culture of their time. They remained loyal to God and who they were. Let's look at their beginnings and how they dealt with culture, despite their being in captivity while having a made-up mind. Daniel in chapter 1 began with King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon besieging Jerusalem and taking authority over the people of Judah. He then ordered Ashpenaz, who was the chief of his palace officials, to select certain young men from the royal families of Judah with special qualifications. They were to be strong, healthy, handsome, very intelligent, and had the poise to stand before the king. They were to be taken from Jerusalem and deported to Babylon. Upon arrival, King Nebuchadnezzar appointed them a daily provision from the king's table. Among those selected of the children of Israel were Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. But these 4 Hebrew boys resolved or had a made-up mind not to defile themselves with the king's table or the culture. So Daniel asked permission from Ashpenaz that they be excused from indulging in the king's meal, although the king had ordered that specific meals be given to all the young men who were selected to go through this time, as well as a 3-year curriculum. Isn't it interesting? When you have a made-up mind to do the right thing, God will bring you into favor to accomplish what's in your made-up mind or heart. Daniel 1:9 said, "Now God had brought Daniel into favor and tender love with Ashpenaz, the prince of the eunuchs." We find when you have a made-up mind, culture will submit to you and not you submit to the culture. Most people would assume these Hebrew boys were put in an adverse situation, which they had no control over. They were in captivity, deported from their families, and given orders by the king. So what other choice did they have but to change and submit to their environment? But that's not your only option when you have a made-up mind and God gives you favor. Remember to always check your response with the Word of God and sound doctrine. Perhaps these boys remembered what their forefather David had said in Psalms 141:4, "And let me not eat their dainties." So although the king changed the names of these 4 Hebrew boys, he could not change their nature. And because the favor of God was upon them, Ashpenaz put his life on the line by yielding to David's request to allow them to eat of their Hebrew diet instead of the king's meal for 10 days. Then come back and compare their countenance to the other young men, and then they asked him to make his decision. Ashpenaz agreed, and after 10 days, the 4 Hebrew boys were healthier and better nourished than all of the other young men because they had a made-up mind to obey God and not the culture. Daniel 1:17 said, God gave these 4 Hebrew boys knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom. And Daniel had learning in all vision and dreams. So after completing a strenuous 3-year academic course, the 4 Hebrew boys were brought before Nebuchadnezzar to be questioned in their knowledge and understanding. After examining them, the king concluded there was no comparison to their knowledge and the knowledge of all the other young men. As a matter of fact, these 4 Hebrew boys were 10 times wiser than all the magicians and astrologers in his entire kingdom. So all these boys were promoted. But in contrast, don't be like Demas and allow culture and the dainties of the world to sway you from the made-up mind you once used to have, because now you have fallen in love with this present world. So I leave you with 1 Corinthians 15:58. Be ye steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord. For as much as ye know, your labor is not in vain in the Lord. Well, I've got a made-up mind. What about you?